Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for spending some of your day together. One of the things I like to do, you may want to see me, but even just for a minute, if you know how to do so, switch your view to gallery view and just look at some of the other faces that are here tonight, because sometimes life as a human, especially as a caregiver, can feel very lonely. And so just knowing that even though we're here on Zoom and you're in your own home or somewhere else far away from one another, that we're in this together. So we're sharing this experience together. And you can wave at somebody and they might wave back at you. So it just makes it a little bit less lonely and more fun. So I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Judy, for the invitation. Thank you, Susan, for hosting. As you said, my name is Emilie Reid, and I'll introduce myself in just a moment, but I want to give you a little bit of an outline of what I have in mind for tonight so that you have some ideas. At any point, if you need to leave, just go right ahead, take care of yourself. This is your time, so use it however you need to. It's always nice to know that everything's okay. But you don't have to let us know if you need to leave. What I'm going to do is introduce myself a little bit of my background, and then I want to talk a little bit about stress and what it is and how it's useful and how sometimes it's not. And then we're going to go into 4 different experiences, each one of which I think is helpful in managing or helping to live with stress. And it'll be totally experiential. What would be helpful, if you'd like, is to have a little bit of space. At some point towards the end, you may want to lie down, and you can do that on a couch or on the floor or on your bed or not at all. So I'll invite you into those experiences, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Does that sound good? All right. So again, my name is Emilie Reid. I have been a yoga teacher for a long time. I'm also a wellness and instinctive meditation coach. So these are my passions, and my specialty is seasonal solutions to stress. And my organization or my company is Seasonal Intentions. So if anybody wants to go to my website afterwards, you can check out the blog, seasonalintentions.com. I'll write it in the chat just in case I forget later. And my shtick, if you will, my brand, other than seasonal solutions to stress, is really bringing some awareness into our modern everyday life about some of the things that people have known about and been doing to help manage being human and being alive for thousands of years. So things like yoga and Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, meditation, those things have been around for thousands of years. And humans have too, and we haven't changed very much in that time for the most part. And that's the good news, right? Which means we can bring some of these techniques into our daily life. The question is, how do we do it in a way that feels manageable and useful? And so that is my goal. I am not here to fix you. I believe that you are perfect exactly the way you are. My hope is that maybe there's one thing that you take away from tonight that you might try, even if it's just trying it together tonight and you get something from it or learn something from it. That's great. As with many things, doing things repeatedly or consistently can give you even more benefit. So if today's experience opens the door to you wanting to learn a little bit more, whether it's with me or with someone else, I totally applaud that. But tonight is just about tonight. So stress, that is our word for the evening. But let's figure out, we'll find a new word for the end of tonight. So before we get started, if you are able to or comfortable using the chat, I would love to know how are you feeling right now? What's one word, perhaps, maybe 2, if you're one of those people that can't decide on one, that describes how you're feeling right now? And it could be anything at all. And if you don't want to share, that's fine. Often sharing can help validate how you feel about it. And sometimes you're like, oh, I'm stressed. Oh, wait, am I? Or how am I stressed? How do I know that I'm stressed? Tired, curious, overwhelmed, tense, rushed, just walked in the door. All right, take your time, Kathy. Settle in. A bit depleted and overwhelmed. Interesting. I see a lot of overwhelmed and tired and halfway to burnout. Yeah. So I hear you. Tense. Okay. Drained from work. Okay. And life, right? Because work is part of life. Thank you for sharing. Sad. Yeah, I see you. Ah, lots of feelings. And remember, being human means we can experience lots of feelings at the same time. We can experience joy and sadness all in the same moment. So thank you for sharing your one word. And I'll check in with you again in a little bit. So here's the thing. And this is the good news, I think, but this is what gets people a little bit confused sometimes, is that our bodies are designed to keep us alive. And one of the ways that it does that is through the stress response. So this is a evolutionarily programmed thing that you can't really stop. In fact, it's probably a good thing that it works, right? And part of the stress response, without going into all of the science, is to kick up our heartbeat and get us riled up, ready to, run away from the bear that might be chasing us. But most of us don't have a bear in our backyards anymore, unless perhaps you do. Maybe you're living in Vermont, and that could be a regular occurrence. But for most of us, there are no lions, tigers, and bears that are creating an immediate danger. And so whatever your bear is in your life, and there may be several, right, that create this response, that is a physiological response. It is confirmation that your body is working in the way that it is designed to do. But one of the things it's designed to do is complete the stress cycle. It's like a cycle, or even a spiral, not a downward spiral. I know spirals get a bad rap, but imagine a spiral moving, right? And the thing about life and being human is you might have several spirals or cycles happening in different formats or sizes or speeds on any given day, right? So the goal is to complete the stress cycle. Once you've been activated into the stress response, can you allow, or at least support, or maybe even get out of the way, of allowing your body to complete the stress cycle naturally? And what are some of the ways that it can do that? Well, one of the ways is to get rid of the bear. So if you've managed to get away from the bear, it's gone, awesome. But for many of us, the bear is not a bear. And it may be something related to work, or your duties as a caregiver, for example, that are constant in their own ways, right? And so if we can't get rid of the bear, how can we at least support the body in helping complete the cycle, so that we're not constantly in an activated mode or a low grade of activation, which then becomes the new normal? And that is when we tend to, somebody used the word burnout, right? So stress isn't a bad thing. There can be good stress, like when you lift weights, for example, you're putting good stress on your muscles in order for them to grow. And many experiences that we have are like weightlifting, where they help us grow, even though they may be challenging at the time. The question is, how can we help the body, or at least get out of the way? In some cases, it's like, don't scratch the cut, right? Because it won't heal. Can you step out of the way? And so tonight, what I'd like to do is 4 experiences, all connected to this idea of helping the body complete the stress cycle. The first is movement. Now, many of us have grown up in a culture where we think movement and exercise are part of either looking a certain way, feeling perhaps strong in a certain way, or feeling healthy for ourselves and for our families. And that is all very true. But In addition to that, and what I think is even more important, is that movement is one of the ways that the body can complete the stress cycle. By literally shaking perhaps, or punching a punching bag, or going for a walk. It doesn't have to be extreme or violent, even if the stress feels extreme and intense. It could be as simple as getting up and walking around the block. It could be doing some jumping jacks, or running around after your grandchildren or your children. Movement helps the body get rid of some of those activating hormones and complete the stress cycle so that we can be in that more relaxed state. So that's number one. And we'll do something really simple for that in a moment. Number two could be acupuncture, or what I like to do, which is like massaging acupuncture points. Again, massage could be in that category, but things where you're trying to support the body in creating a more calm state. And sometimes that means quite literally working out some of the tension in the muscles. I was not finding that word very easily. A third thing is you could use your breath, which is something that you do automatically. But of all the things triggered by the stress response, there's your heart rate, there's your blood flow, there's your hypertension, there's all these things that happen in the body. Your breath rate increases too. Of all the things that the stress response activates, you have zero control over all of them except for your breath. That is the one thing that you can, in any given moment, do something with intentionally to help regulate your response, or at least help bring your cycle around to some feeling of completing the stress cycle. Is this interesting? Is this interesting or helpful at all? Just put a 1 in the chat if it's interesting. Type a number 1 so that I know that this is not like crazy over your head. We're gonna do some of these things in a moment. Thank you. Yeah. Can you say what the stress cycle is? So I don't want to spend too much time on the science of it, but basically when you're triggered, that's a great question. When you're triggered by any kind of stress, and just remember that stress is very individual. So if two people have the same experience, for example, if two people, if you're driving up to a stop sign and you don't see anybody coming, but then all of a sudden you hit on the gas pedal and there's a biker coming across your path, you might go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, right? And so your body immediately reacts so that you can be ready to respond in that moment. Hopefully you hit the brake and nothing happened, right? But you might still feel like your heartbeat goes a little bit because it felt very close, or it surprised you, or it shocked you. Now, there could be someone else in the exact same situation that doesn't have that same response, or maybe doesn't get as triggered by that incident, for example. So everything is very individual, which is what makes it, I think, more interesting, because what is stressful to you may not be stressful to me, and vice versa, right? But your stress is part of living an interesting life, right? Because you care and you love people and you have more goals than just sitting on a mountaintop and meditating to hopefully, find enlightenment one day. We have bills to pay and dogs that need feeding and wonderful people in your life that you care for. So, all right, so you're triggered, right? Going back to the stress stress cycle, you're triggered. And when you're triggered, all these flood of physiological responses happen, including some hormones that get dumped into your system to help you respond or run away from the lion or hit the brake really quickly in the example I gave earlier. The question is, once you hit the brake, does your body then know how to, and can it come down? Or are you like so worried about that biker, even though nothing happened, and where did they come from, and are they okay? Like you could be worried about that for hours after, in which case your body's still maybe in this hyped up situation. And so then maybe it's not able to come down, or maybe some other stressor comes in and they never complete the first cycle. There's a wonderful book called, oh, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I'll remember it. I think it's called Burnout, just plain Burnout, by a woman named Emily with a Y. I'll think of it in a second, but it's wonderful. She and her twin sister wrote it together, and she talks a lot about the stress cycle if you're interested in that. All right, so going back to the breath, that will be our third experience, right? We'll do something called the global breath, and it's an experience that hopefully will help just feel very calm, and if anything, just really nice and sweet. And the fourth thing is meditation. We're going to do a short meditation together. And meditation helps because meditation is a natural instinct that your body created in order to manage stress. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you could rehearse all the things that happen, like if at the end of your day, after that incident with the biker at the stop sign, you went on to work, you had your day, then you came home, and maybe you didn't process everything. If you are quietly with yourself, and by that I'm trying not to use the word sit, because you don't have to sit to meditate, but if you spend a moment in meditation, perhaps at the end of your day, some of those things that popped up, including the incident with the biker, might be in your mind. And you might see or visualize and watch yourself respond again, or maybe have a conversation with the biker that never actually happened, right? But it's kind of happening in your head. You're saying, I'm sorry, or even though you weren't able to say anything to them in that moment, perhaps. And often in meditation, it's almost like that massage of getting the kinks out. And you're able to manage some of the things in your day, but from a relaxed place. And so it's almost like rehearsing or reviewing or remembering some things. And this is all very natural, and your body knows how to do it. So we'll do a little experience right at the end for that. Does that sound good? Okay, so I'm going to change. How about this? We're going to stand first. No, we're going to stay seated. I'm going to change the order of what I just told you. We're going to start with the acupuncture point. So there are lots of acupuncture points, and if you have never been to acupuncture, I highly recommend it. Some acupuncturists also don't even work with needles. They use magnets and other things. So if needles are a thing for you, you can find somebody, especially Japanese acupuncturists. They work with things beyond just needles. There's one point in particular that you can massage yourself. There are lots, but one in particular that is great for overall stress. There are many meridians or energy lines in the body. And for those of you who are acupuncture nerds like me, we're going to use the liver 3 acupuncture point. The liver meridian, which is the energy line, goes beyond just the liver organ itself, right? But the liver meridian or energy line is what is also most active in the spring. And when it's in balance, we feel this sort of equanimity or contentment with life. And we can be okay with the roller coaster of emotions. We can feel all of our emotions and then be okay with it. When it's out of balance is when we tend to anger, or tend to lash out, or tend to frustration, right? So if you feel yourself doing a lot of huffing and puffing, that's what my acupuncturist would say, excess liver energy. So this point is wonderful. It's also really wonderful for regulating the menstrual cycle for women. So it's a great point for everybody, but in particular women. So I'm going to show you my foot here. And if you're comfortable taking your socks off, I'll show you on the foot. You're going to look at the top of your foot between the second and the third toe, right? And bring one of your fingers in between the 2 toes, tickle yourself here. And then slide the finger up the top of your foot. And at some point there's I have a particular bony foot here, but there's some bones at the middle arch point. But right before you get there, sort of if you draw that line up, at some point your finger kind of naturally stops, maybe around 1 inch up the way. And then take the fingers and kind of poke around there. And for some of you, it might be really sensitive. You might be like, ooh, that's interesting. So I like to call it a fun ouch. But if it's about an inch or so, you can poke around. If you don't feel a sensitivity, you can usually identify these points also by feeling like it's almost like there's a little divot, like your finger kind of lands there. Did anybody find it? It's a little bit tender, maybe. So you don't have to go really intense, but with 1 or 2 fingers, you could just make little circular massage-like motions. And I'm crossing my ankle on top of my thigh here. You could also be on the floor or in a different chair. And you have this point on both feet. So you could pick, you could do both. I like to do this in the middle of a Zoom meeting, right? Because nobody can see that I'm crossing my legs and holding on to my foot here and doing a little massage. Yeah, and if you can't feel you don't feel a whole lot, that's okay. You still have these acupuncture points in your body. So you could find that spot just from about an inch and a half up from the in between the 2 toes and very gently massage there. And notice how you're massaging. There's no wrong way, but if you're like, all right, I'm going to get rid of the stress, right? See if you can okay, just enjoy. You didn't think you were touching your feet today, probably, right? You didn't have that in your plan. It might be funny, you laugh a little bit. Maybe it's mildly enjoyable. Maybe you notice nothing. If anything, we're not hurting anything, right? That's the hope. There's no harm, but hopefully neutral or better. If you want to poke around the other foot for a few moments and see how that one feels, sometimes there's a difference from left to right in your experience. And I find that even just spending a minute with myself, I'm just noticing my foot and how my finger feels against it as it's making these little circles. And touch is such a wonderful thing, right? Like when you touch your child or your dog, they just know and they get calm. And so it's something we can give to ourselves too. All right. How's everybody doing? Okay. Interesting at minimally. All right. So that's more of like the massage, calm. I'm going to step onto my yoga mat. You don't need a yoga mat. It's just mine's always out because I'm always teaching. And I'm going to stand. So if you'd like, you can join me in standing for this next little experience. So for generations, many traditions have included movement or dance or shaking in their medicine or their rituals, especially when there is, I think of for example, a lot of Native Americans, before they go out on a hunt, they dance together. And they move. It's almost like they're getting hyped up a little bit. And so in order to calm themselves, they will move or dance. And you don't have to if you don't want to, but the invitation here is to have both feet on the floor, but just to create a little bit of a bounce, almost like you're trying to shake gently in the body. So I'm kind of bending my knees just slightly. I'm letting my arms dangle by my sides. almost like shaking water off of the fingers. And at any point, if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to keep the eyes open. Some people end up closing them. That's fine. There's nothing specific you need to see. And if it's natural, you can make a sound. See if you can let the shoulders shake or wiggle a little bit. Find a spot that's not shaking in your body and see if you can wiggle it or shake it. And you can be as gentle with yourself as you like. You can do this sitting in your chair as well. I'm standing here just to give a little bit more space for movement. Feel free to bring the arms out to the side or overhead, or even do a little shake of the shoulders forward. Sometimes when energy gets stuck, right, this goes back to the meridians or the energy lines in the body. That's when we feel tense or tight. Can we get things to move more freely? And movement can do that. Any kind of movement can do that. If you like, you can shake out one leg. This is easier if you're sitting or holding on to the chair. And then maybe shake out the other leg. Be gentle with yourself. If you need to only do one side, that's fine. And if you like, you can go a little faster or a little bigger with your movements. You can also be slow and large with your movements, or slow and small. Just take another 30 seconds or so to wiggle. Try to wiggle your earlobes, or maybe take your hands to your face and jiggle your cheeks. You can also tap your cheeks gently with your finger pads. You can go up to the forehead, the top of the head, the jaw, especially if you've had a tough day. Sometimes we tend to clench the jaw. This light touch. The tapping will break things up, help move the energy, but it's loving pats. If you prefer the shaking, perhaps slow it down, whatever you're doing. Keep slowing down your movements. Maybe you're swaying. You don't have to stop entirely. But pause yourself for a moment to notice the effect of what you just did. Maybe you feel some tingling in places that you didn't before. I'm feeling it in my face. Maybe you feel lighter in some places in the body, or heavier, or stronger. Or maybe there's an emotion that's new or different. Notice what's present. Sometimes it's the noticing or the pausing to notice that is part of the medicine of completing the stress cycle. Acknowledging, I acknowledge that I'm stressed. I welcome the stressed part of me. I welcome the part of me that doesn't want to be stressed. I welcome the part of me that feels joyful. I welcome all parts of me. And if gravity is kind of inviting you either back to your chair, if that's where you're comfortable, or down onto the floor. I'm going to come down onto the floor so that you can see what we're doing next. We'll move into the, I'm just going to adjust the camera here. Let's see how that works. We're going to move into an exercise called the global breath. So you can be on a couch, on a chair, or if you want to lie down, it doesn't have to be the floor. This is just where I am comfortable and familiar. You might try feet flat, knees bent, which can help ease the lower back. And we're going to do something in 3 parts and then put the 3 parts together. So at first, just have your hands anywhere that's comfortable. And take a moment to notice the feeling of yourself, either your back against the ground or against the couch or against the chair. You might still feel some of that tingling from our movement and shaking. And you might become aware of your natural breath rhythm. And if it's interesting or soothing to you to simply notice your natural breath, you can do that. I'll invite you to join me if you like for this first part of the global breath. Take your hands and right below the chest, where you can feel some of those first ribs. And let your elbows, if you're on the ground or on the couch, let your elbows be relaxed at your sides. So you're simply touching that space at the front of your ribs and chest. And take 5 sweet, easy breaths. But bring your awareness to that space where your hands are. So the front part of your body. So as you breathe in, notice your whole torso expand, in particular to the front. And then as you breathe out, you might notice that area contract. If you're on the floor, you might feel it sort of release towards the ground. As you inhale, feel yourself expand. As you exhale, maybe you notice something different, sinking. Good. Now take your hands and wrap them around the side of your ribs. So maybe your thumb is pointing back towards the back of your chair or towards the floor, and your other fingers are kind of wrapped around so that you feel more the side of your ribs. And take 5 slow, sweet breaths and see if you can feel the expansion and contraction in the side body. So as you inhale, maybe you feel your hands kind of widening as the ribs expand to make space for the breath. And as you exhale, notice that area contract and return to your starting position. Continue a few more times on your own pace. Good. Now let your arms rest at your sides and become aware of the back of your ribs. Maybe it's a spot sort of between the shoulder blades, the mid back. If you're against the floor or sitting with a chair behind you, that might be the spot that you feel the most pressure against the floor, the couch, or the chair. And take 5 sweet breaths, easy breaths, and see if you can feel the back of your torso expanding on the inhale, getting closer to the chair or the floor, and then contracting on the exhale as it moves away. This one can be hardest to feel, so don't be afraid. But see if you bring your mind's eye to that spot. Good. Now you can keep your arms where they are if you're comfortable, or return them to some part of your chest, maybe near the heart or just below the chest. And now I want you to bring those 3 parts together into what's called the global breath. So each time you feel yourself inhaling, can you feel your whole torso expand in all directions, front, side, and back, like a balloon filling with air? And as you exhale, can you feel that balloon reduce in all directions as the air moves out? Take 5 easy breaths. Good. Now let go of any special effort with your breath. You can keep your hands wherever they're comfortable and continue to be with yourself. Ask yourself, what is something that I love? What is something I love so much that I would love to be with it right now? This could be a feeling like maybe a favorite fluffy pillow. It could be sunshine. It could be a person or a pet. Maybe it's the feeling that you get when you rub your fingers across your pet's brow. Or maybe it's just that warmth that you feel when you're with someone that you love. And hold that feeling or that experience or that moment in your mind. Notice any sensations on your skin, any tingling or feeling in your belly or your heart. As you remember or bring to mind this moment, this thing that you love. And welcome any thoughts, memories, or emotions that are part of your experience. At some point, you might think, oh, wait, I'm meditating. And then you can choose to go back in, maybe with that same feeling or thing that you love, or choose something different. What's interesting to you right now? Maybe you love the feeling of being here in this moment, breathing together with others who care and who are living an interesting life like you. You know what you love. Go there. Be tender with yourself. You may have gone far, far away or into a deep inner place. Maybe you feel the floor or the chair underneath you. Allow your eyes to open gently and take in the light around you, or maybe move a little bit or stretch. You're welcome to stay comfortable wherever you are. If you would like to slowly think about interacting again with the screen, with each other, with the outside world, give yourself time. Just gonna set up my chair again so I can be with you all. I'm curious if anyone is interested in sharing what's the feeling now? What's a word or two words that describe your experience now? We did quite a few things together since we first sat down. Feel free to share. And it's okay if it's not relaxed and peaceful. I see a few relaxed and peacefuls here. Your experience is valid. So I see more open, slowed down. Thank you for sharing. More restful than when I came on the Zoom. I could take a nap. I love that idea. A little less stressed. Yes. Wonderful. And I just want to say that if that is not your experience, that is also valid. But just notice what your word was when you came and how you're feeling now. And even just a few moments of either movement or connecting with your breath or being with yourself and something that you love can have such a profound effect and can help your body complete the stress cycle. Didn't want to come back. Yeah, you can stay there as long as you like. Feeling more tranquil. Thank you for sharing, everyone. I'd love to open it up for any questions that you have. Feel free to pop them in the chat if you do. If you have something about your experience you'd like to share, comment on, that's also lovely. Again, anytime you have a question or something to share, including your word, it often resonates with somebody else who's here. And it helps validate your experience. Like, oh yeah, remember when I did that 5 minutes of global breath? I felt more peaceful, more tranquil. And often, our brains will forget those things really quickly, which is, I think, why sometimes we don't make an effort, or it's hard sometimes to make an effort to create the time, even though we know it only takes, oh yeah, it only takes 5 minutes, but I can handle this. I can handle life without it. But isn't it nicer with just a few minutes of the things we did together? So feel free to pop in the chat any questions you have for me or about what we did, about, I just remembered the name of the author of that book, and I'll put it in the chat. Emilie Nagoski.
Oh, look in,
is the burnout
this
book.
Judy talking. Emily, look in the chat. Someone looked it up for you.
Oh, they did. Okay. Maybe
and
I
there's
was
the whole name there.
relaxed. Yes. Thank you, Karen. It's called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Yep. With Emilie and Emilie Nagoski. Yeah. It's very
wonderful.
Very good. And it's available on audiobook too. The two sisters narrate it. So if you're more into audio, I loved the narration, although they're quite sassy. So it comes through in their narration.
Well, this has been wonderful. Look at Karen's last thought here.
If you are
Emily?
not experienced with acupuncture, can I do this for my loved one too? Yeah, absolutely. You can find that point if they're open to it and willing, or you can show them how to do it for themselves. Yeah, what a wonderful thing. Doing a foot massage, I know you know this already because we've worked a little bit together, but doing a foot massage for yourself, the whole foot, you can focus on that point if you want, but doing a foot massage with some warm oil before you go to bed, put some socks on. That is one of the things I help my clients incorporate into their daily routine, and it can help you get to sleep. It can help you relieve the stress from your day and prepare for a better night's sleep.
Here's our last thought, because we're coming to the
Yes, I see
6:30
a
point.
question here.
Yeah. It's
So Kathy,
any thoughts on bringing down? Yeah, you got that.
Yeah, any thoughts on bringing down the stress in the moment of a stressful event? I think this is a hard one to say, because it's almost like you don't want to prevent the stress cycle from completing itself, right? And sometimes we do that. We're like, oh no, I don't have time to deal with this. I'm just gonna keep going or do the thing. And so sometimes, yes, we need to sort of say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to deal with this later, but then what if we don't, right? Really make a deal with yourself. Okay, I need to focus right now. And for me, it's different for everybody, but for me, often it's a mantra, which is often translated as like a phrase or a word. And it could be, for those of you who are into prayer, it could be a prayer that you're familiar with or that you grew up with or is in your culture. It could be a set of words, or just like peace, 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 or patience. That's been my word for several years, is patience. Could be something else, a poem or a phrase that you're very familiar with. I think for me, that just helps me bring myself into, okay, how do I make a decision on moving forward from a clearer place? And then I can go back. Usually in my meditation is when the incident will pop up again, and I'll be able to have a conversation with myself about what happened.
So I'm going to close us now with a lovely thing. It
Yeah.
says, a lovely chat. I highly recommend Season Intentions with Emilie. That's her company and website. I have learned, and a lot of people are saying, thank you so much. And that just went away from me as I was reading it.
Oh, it's
Oh,
okay.
I've learned so much about self-care. Check it out. Great things I have learned from Emilie.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
And a lot of thank yous. And this was so relaxing and lovely. And you are just a wonderful leader, but also your whole sense of calm and teaching us and guiding us and allowing us to experience it in our own way, I find exhilarating, then complements my calm. So thank you so much. As everyone is saying, a little time out, which
You're
was wonderful.
welcome.